So today on this conscious citizenship conversation, it's a great pleasure to welcome Lianne Bridges. Lianne is a life and business coach. She's also going to be a published author, believe it or not, on Sunday. Something
Yay!
that's long awaited. And as I'm in the process of writing a book myself, sometimes the baby is really tough to birth. The
Yes.
gestation is not always 9 months. And so we'll talk about all that. So welcome, Lianne.
Thank you so much. And you're absolutely right. My gestation was 9 years
Yeah.
instead of 9 months.
So it must be a big baby. So
It's a big baby. I'm really excited. Here, we finally got the
yeah.
cover. I'm really excited about this.
So maybe, Lianne, we talk about you first. Tell us a bit about you. Who are you? And obviously there is a special story in the book, obviously that started with a lot of sadness, but I'm sure ended up in a lot of transformation, which is what you shared in the book. And we'll talk about love, because I love the title of your book, because a lot of people know that I'm in love with love. And the title of your book is actually called Love Will Keep Us Alive.
That's right.
So
yeah, maybe I could start there, actually.
Yeah, start there.
Love Will Keep Us Alive is a song by the Eagles. That was my husband and I's favorite song. It was our song, and it was actually, those words were engraved in our wedding ring. It was the first song we danced to. They were actually the last words he said to me before he passed away as well. And what I realized is that, as you said, love is everything. And it helped me, my real love for him, helped me connect with him after death, to actually communicate beyond the grave with him. Because when you lose somebody so close to you, it's often when you start your journey to try to figure out what's beyond death. And that was a real trigger for me to do that. So that started 10 years ago. I was left with 2 little kids to raise on my own. I'd had a business consulting firm for 10 years. And at the same time, the market crashed as my husband died. And so my whole life imploded, as you can imagine. Consultants, as you know, are usually the first ones to go, something like that. My business tanked, my life. But in the midst of that, I had like a vision of a blank slate, that I had the gift within this was to recreate my life and to paint it however I wanted to do that. So that was kind of my journey to figure that out. And like a lot of times when you go through a crisis, it's an opportunity to awaken to a greater part of your life. So I did a lot of mindfulness and traveling. We met at the Wisdom Conference. I went to the very first one. That was a transformation piece for me. And as I started to learn more and more about intuition and the fact that there's something much greater than what we know of, the kind of 3-dimensional world, I was able to learn so much more about myself and to be able to connect with my husband, and then open up to a lot more and understand the great wisdom that's out there, to connect with that and recognize that we all have that ability. That, I never was a medium or anything like that, but I learned that I could communicate that way. And really it is that love that connects us, and that message that my journey started with romantic love. I had an incredible romantic story in this part of the story of my book with my husband. But the romantic love was just a reflection of myself. What I saw is that it was just the me being reflected through my husband. He helped me to awaken a lot more emotionally in my life. And I met him when I was 30. And often people say now that we just actually come into our adulthood at 30. And that was what happened to me. He kind of was like, helped me become the woman from a girl at 30, emotionally, mentally. But then when he died in my 40s, that's when I woke up as a real spiritual woman, or started my awakening as a spiritual woman. Now, 10 years later, is still on my journey. So,
It's funny what you said about connecting with loved ones, even though they're not physically in our space. You must have seen the movie Interstellar, when they go.
I haven't. No, I haven't.
See it, because it talks about physics, but in the end, the man is across the universe, and he sees another dimension, his daughter, which is still at home, and he's trying to talk to her, and eventually, through love, he transcends space, time, and space. And this is backed up by science, So I love that you talk about love, because we often forget in society that we're all connected. I don't think we're all the same. I think we're different materialization of whatever we come from, but we're so connected. And even though people
Yes.
leave our lives, I lost my mom 27 years ago. She's a big part of my life. Every day she's in my life. So let's
Yes.
talk about what you mentioned. You mentioned a few words that I noted. Now, obviously, we note what we love. You talked about creation. You talked about crisis. You talked about awakening. So let's talk
Mhm.
about crisis, often holding the seed for transformation.
Yes.
Huge
Yes.
breakdown. Losing your husband when you have young kids, and then the market tanking on you when you're a consultant. I mean, those are huge breakdowns. And out
Hmm.
of that comes a different person. Can we talk
Yes.
about that? The power of
Sure.
transformation through breakdowns.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I recognize in the last few years is that there are signs along the way. And sometimes we don't listen to them.
Mm,
So, that didn't happen all at once for me. My husband was diagnosed, for example, with terminal cancer, and we thought that was it. And then he went through a whole series of treatments. And we actually believed he kind of beat the odds, and he was cancer free at one point, and that was like he had a 1 in 100 chance of that. All of a sudden he was cancer free,
mm,
and what happened was all we wanted to do was go back to our old lives. And at that point the market was crashing. I was like,
mm,
okay, well, at least he's live, but I just want to go back to my life.
mm,
But in the process of that, what happened is I shrink back. Instead of, it was an opportunity to
mm.
open.
Yeah.
And 4 months later, he was re-diagnosed
Mm,
with terminal cancer again.
mm,
It came back. And I think that was a real wake-up call for me that I didn't quite listen to. And there was another moment in my life around that time where I was starting the book by Eckhart Tolle, New Earth and Power Now was coming out. And I was with a bunch of women talking about this. And I really used to get so revved up and excited. And I was
mm,
like, wow, if only I could be like this all the time, not just the once a month when we were in our spiritual book club. And it was like, be careful what you ask for,
yeah.
right? Because with the crisis came that huge awakening. But I think that it doesn't always have to be crisis. But certainly,
Mm,
I also heard when Bob died, I heard a quote that said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste."
yeah.
And I really felt that if I was to honor my husband's passing, I had to figure out what was what was that kind of silver lining, what was the purpose within it. And for sure it was about my awakening, and to awaken to my purpose, and then to help others to awaken to
Mm.
theirs as well.
I reflected a lot on crises. I've had crises, not the one you had, but others, and they were quite
Mm-hmm.
profound. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the reason we need to go through crises is because we don't listen. So, we need to get
Mm-hmm.
signs that are more and more direct. And if we could just teach young people about transformation process, maybe there would be less crisis. It's like if a butterfly knows that it's going to become, sorry, a caterpillar knows it's going to become a butterfly, then you don't resist the change. Like in
Yes.
your case, it is a pretty big awakening. It's like,
Mm.
wow. And out of that, obviously, it's deeply affected the work you do.
Yes,
You work with a
exactly.
lot of people, and you bring all this new Lianne, Lianne version 5.0, not even 2.0. You're always transforming. You're always, and I see some of the work you do, and it's very deep and profound. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. There's a book or there's a movie called The Fountain. It sounds similar to Interstellar.
I love it.
And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, you love that book, that
yeah,
movie, you know it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And the actual kind of main theme, as you recall, is the road to Oz through death. So at some point when we are transforming, like the caterpillar, there has to be some sort of death, right? It's just how much suffering in the death is there,
Yeah.
and as you said, if we know that that is the road and that we can let go and surrender, it's
Mm.
a lot less suffering.
I lost my dad 5, 6 months ago, and
Oh,
it
sorry.
was a different spiritual experience than when my mom died 27 years, because now I knew he was just going back home, and I actually accompanied
Yes.
him, through all that. And let's talk
Yes.
about another word that you mentioned, a creator. I think you and I agree on that. We can either be victims in our life, or we can become
Mhm.
creators. You could be sitting here and complaining in your sorrows about your husband's death, or you could use it. You're sad, and I'm sure every day you may have some sadness about the lack of him in your
Mhm.
life, which would be normal. But you chose to create your life. You were a
Mhm.
mother of two. You're still a mother of two, but they're less young now,
Yeah.
and you recreated. You launched into a different career, and you're coaching differently now. And can we talk about that, the power of becoming the creators of our life?
Yeah, for sure. What I think it starts with is recognizing that 100% of what happens in our life, we create.
Yeah.
That is something that's so hard for people to really buy into. And it's taken me a long time. Like, how did I create this?
Yeah.
How did I attract this? And also, when I wanted to mention my book is actually part of it, or a good part of the book is actually written by my husband through the grave. So I'm channeling him. And, his death also had a purpose. So it's not like it just happened. It has the purpose for him on the other side. It had a purpose for me. It was almost like a contract that we had before birth. But everyone that is affected by him, his kids, all of them, all had a purpose in that. So, and we all, in some way or form, agreed to it, attracted it, whatever. So I think for me, it's recognizing that, but also what sometimes in our understanding of that, then we start to put blame and guilt. Oh, how did I attract this disease? How did I attract this horrible thing in my life? But if we recognize that we're here for a bigger soul's mission, and that cracking open brings us to something greater, then we can recognize that this is okay, and that idea of surrender again. But that's why I think it starts with recognizing that we're 100% responsible, because from there is a lot of freedom,
I like this word freedom, and I like the cracking. For a tree to become a tree, the shell has to die and crack, and basically be destroyed. And it's the same with flowers, the same with everyone. So, and I love, I'm sure you know Leonard Cohen, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. I love to work with people that have cracks, because then we have a real conversation. There's no more of this defending and blaming. And what is another word I noted, Lianne, you talked about awakening. So what does this word mean? It's used by everybody, but I want to know what it means for you.
Yeah. So to me, what it means is opening to the recognition and awareness. We are so much bigger than the three-dimensional, five-sensory being that we are. It's like Anita Morgiarty, who wrote Dying to Be Me. I always don't pronounce her last name right. Morgiarty, thank you. I can't get that one. She talks about how when she had her near-death experience, it was like being in a huge warehouse in the dark, and that living our normal life is like having a flashlight and looking around. And the reality is, when you put on all the lights, there's so much more, the multi-dimensional aspect of it. So we open slowly, because I don't think our bodies and our psyche can manage opening too quickly. Little by little by little, we get to say, okay, for me was, my husband still exists. Okay. So that introduced me to my father who passed, and being able to communicate to him, and then to my guides, and then beyond, and then to see and past lives, and see the ribbon, the connection between our past lives and our soul's mission and what we're here for. And then the much greater. So that's what it means to me to open up, but it's really stepping into our potential more and more. At any stage, we have a greater potential to step into. And so we have to open up to that little by little and awaken to that. And it takes awareness and consciousness to do that.
Yeah, some people say awakening to the illusion of reality that we've been sold, that actually it's not that. It's like you said, a soul living a human experience. Life is a school. I'm here to learn and grow. And so it's really beautiful. So you're launching, big launch party on Sunday. I think you're
in Hudson,
with all your friends. And to be honest, I'm going to try to make it if I can.
That would be awesome.
I've done for a long time. And so if someone gets your book, what will they find in your book?
What I think the main thing is to realize that not only can we overcome, all of us have it in us, to overcome some of life's hardest things, that we become stronger, and then we actually open up to a new path and potential.
New path. So we become who we're meant to be.
That's it. Exactly. Evolving into who we're meant to be. And you know that, people on their deathbed, their biggest regret is that not becoming, having the courage to become who they're meant to be. And you and I, in our work, we see people like that all the time. And we see the potential. And if all of us just opened up a little bit, awakened a little bit, it doesn't have to be through that. Imagine what our world could become. All of us with our soul mission coming online.
I think we could potentially transform humanity and hopefully save it, and And coming back to your title, it is a very auspicious title. Love will not only keep us alive as you and I and our immediate ones, but as a species, you know.
Yes.
And I think there's a serious lack of love. And what about self-love? You know, I tend to think that we cannot love another more than we actually love ourselves. That
Absolutely.
true love comes from giving without expectations. So what's your experience with that?
Well, and that is actually the main theme of the book, because
Oh,
it's interesting because love will keep us alive. But it's also, there's two other aspects of that, is that love alivens us.
yeah.
Without love in our life is not alive. You know, so it's not just keeping us in the song is about, you know, in the hardest times, love kept me from dying.
Yeah.
It keeps me from dying inside. But the other thing is the kind of hero's journey that all of us kind of go through to some extent is that we're looking for love outside of ourselves. Yeah. Right? So in romantic love, in our work, maybe in accolades, whatever it might be. And that was for me, and it helped me to good in a way to see what was the potential, because it was reflected in me and my husband. Yeah. But when I lost that, as much as I wanted to find him, I had to find the true love, which is unconditional love for self. Yeah. Because that's, and not to say I'm there yet, that's an ongoing, and I think it will be maybe many, many lifetimes to experience that. But it's one step after another to learn, you know, self-compassion, forgiveness, and love. And then to be able to reflect that out to others. But that's the hero's journey, I think, for most of us.
You have a dog, I think. Yeah, I've seen the picture.
Yes.
So I think I don't know about your dog. My dog is a great teacher for unconditional love. You know.
Yes. Amazing.
So maybe, Lianne, one last question. You're a very passionate person. It translates in your tone and your speed, and just like you're full of energy, and you're working with lots of people. So where you are now, because it's always evolving, what do you see your life mission is? What's your purpose now?
Well, it's really to help people to open or awaken, to flower, which means helping them remove some of the things that stop them from flowering, and with the ultimate aim to help them to step into their life's and soul's mission. And I really believe when we do that and we become more aligned with that, little by little or bigger by bigger, oh my God, our life becomes just so full of passion, of purpose. We energize. I believe we actually become younger. I think you've experienced this. Physically we change. We will be able to live longer. And there's a lot of research with this. So I really believe that's so important. And if I could mention one thing about the book and the process of the book, is we were talking offline about this, is that you talk about where my work is going. My work when I first started this was really more about business coaching and conscious business coaching, but it's evolved much more towards helping people awaken to their life purpose and remove, as I said, the blocks. And that's my story. And so my book has taken me 9 years to write. And I think because my own journey has taken to get to this point. So my book now reflects more of my work and my practice and my mission in the world. And I had to catch up to that. I couldn't have had it 5 years ago, and it was really not fitting with who I was, you know?
Yeah, and our work always reflects who we are, you know, and we attract people that need. None of us, I mean, I've never met an enlightened person. I'm not. And I don't think, you know, you probably are not either. But we can guide people on the journey we've been, you know, and you've been on quite a journey. So you can guide people to that part. But
That's it, exactly.
But then you're also evolving every day. You know, next year will be maybe another book. And maybe the second book will take less than 9 years, you know?
Yes.
I've been told by people that wrote many, just get the first one out, you know? And then after that, the flood is open. So book will be on sale starting Sunday, is it?
It'll be on sale live on Sunday in Willow, Auberge. It's between 2 and 4. And then after that, Monday or Tuesday, it's going to be on Amazon.
Okay, beautiful. So anyone can join your launch party or no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So at the Willow Inn, which is a great auberge, a great place in Hudson.
Beautiful. It's going to be 20 degrees on Sunday, so it's beautiful on the water.
Okay.
And just if you all want more information, it's lovewillkeepusalive.com.
Very good. I'll put the link in the comments, and hopefully Hudson is not too flooded. Hopefully you're okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working on that. You know, motion and water, so interesting. I was waiting for your comment about that because you talked about the fire, which I really loved. You know, your blog about that. So
very good. So I'll try to make it, but I'll certainly get the book. And thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lianne.